Imagine a woman sitting on a bus. It is 1955. She is tired. Her feet ache. She is not a general. She is not a politician. She is a seamstress with a soft voice. When the bus driver orders her to give up her seat, she does not scream. She does not make a speech. She utters a single word. No. That quiet refusal ignited a revolution. We are told that history belongs to the bold, to the loud, to the ones who seize the microphone. But what if the greatest power in the world isn't found in the roar of a crowd, but in the silence of a single person thinking deeply? Today, we are going to unravel the loudest myth of our time.
Wow, that is a heavy way to start. I think I know who you were talking about, Rosa Parks, but I always pictured her as this towering figure of defiance. You know, someone who loved to fight.
And that is exactly the misconception we are here to dismantle. Welcome to the show. I am Sarah.
And I am Alex. And today we are diving deep, really deep into a book that frankly made me question my entire career, my parenting style, and maybe even my personality. We are talking about Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain.
This book is a manifesto, Alex. It argues that we have created a value system. Cain calls it the Extrovert Ideal, where we believe that the ideal self is gregarious, alpha, and comfortable in the spotlight. We think that to be great is to be bold, and to be happy is to be sociable.
But isn't that true? I mean, look at our world. The people who get promoted are the ones pounding the table in meetings. The kids who are popular are the ones engaging with everyone. If you are quiet, people think you are unhappy, or worse, that you are judging them. Are you saying that is all wrong?
I am saying it is a cultural bias, not a biological truth. Think about the Rosa Parks example again. When she died, the obituaries were full of phrases like timid and shy alongside courage of a lion. We view those as contradictions. We ask, how can you be shy and courageous? But Parks titled her own autobiography, Quiet Strength. We have forgotten that quiet can be a form of power. And statistically, Alex, 1 out of every 2 or 3 people you know is an introvert. If you are not one, your partner is, your child is, or your boss is.
That many? I guess a lot of them are pretending to be extroverts then. I certainly know people who force themselves to go to happy hour because they think they have to.
Exactly. And that pretending comes at a cost. But before we get into the science of it, we have to understand how we got here, because it wasn't always this way. Susan Cain takes us back to the turn of the 20th century to show us how we shifted from a culture of character to a culture of personality.
This part of the book fascinated me. So, in the culture of character, the ideal was about who you were in private, right? Honor, integrity, discipline. The example she uses is Abraham Lincoln, a man who was famously melancholic and reserved, but respected for his inner virtue. He didn't have to smile for the camera because there were no cameras.
Precisely. But then comes urbanization. People moved from small towns, where everyone knew their family history, to big cities full of strangers. Suddenly, your reputation wasn't based on your lifetime of deeds. It was based on the first impression you made in a job interview or a sales pitch. You had to sell yourself and enter the age of the salesman. Enter Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie, the how to win friends and influence people guy. I didn't realize he was such a pivotal figure in this shift. The book describes his transformation from a shy farm boy into a public speaking icon. It is the classic American success story.
It is. But look at what that story teaches us. It teaches us that shyness is a barrier to be overcome. It teaches us that to succeed, we must become mighty likable fellows. The self-help books changed, Alex. They stopped telling us to be noble and started telling us to be magnetic, fascinating, and dominant. We started analyzing our personalities like products to be marketed. Even advertisements changed. They started scaring people. Critical eyes are sizing you up right now.
I loved that detail about the shaving cream ads. Let your face reflect confidence, not worry. It is literally selling the idea that you can't just be competent, you have to look like you own the room. And this leads us to the inferiority complex.
Right. Alfred Adler's concept. Suddenly, if you were quiet or reserved, you weren't just different. You had a complex. You were maladjusted. Parents started worrying if their kids spent too much time reading alone. Schools shifted from book learning to social adjustment. We started creating a world that was literally designed for extroverts.
And that brings us to the modern day, and maybe the most intense example of this, Extrovert Ideal, Chapter 2. The Tony Robbins Seminar. I have to say, reading this description gave me anxiety just sitting on my couch.
Oh, it is visceral. Susan Cain goes to a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within event. Imagine 4 days, 15 hours a day, blaring music, freezing cold temperatures to keep you alert, and thousands of people jumping, screaming, and high-fiving. It is the church of high energy.
And the message there is clear. Low energy is bad. High energy is good. If you are not jumping up and down, you are failing. Cain talks about the hyperthymic temperament, this exuberance on steroids. Robbins is selling the idea that we can all be like him if we just try hard enough. But Alex, here is my question. Is he wrong? I mean, look at him. He is successful. He is happy. Maybe should times be more like that?
That is the seduction of the extrovert ideal. We confuse dominance with leadership. We confuse talkative with smart. Cain then travels to Harvard Business School, which she calls the spiritual capital of extroversion. This is where the masters of the universe are trained. And the rule there is, speak up or you don't exist.
The subarctic survival situation. This experiment blew my mind. Tell the listeners about this.
Okay, so this is a role-playing game HBS students play. You are stranded in the Arctic. You have 15 items: a compass, an axe, a sleeping bag, etc. You have to rank them in order of importance for survival. You do it individually, then as a team. The goal is synergy. The team should come up with a better ranking than any single individual.
But that doesn't always happen. In the story Cain tells, there was one guy in a group who had actual wilderness experience. He knew exactly what to do, but he was quiet. He didn't pound the table. So the group ignored him, followed the loud guy with the bad ideas, and in the simulation, they all died.
They died because they confused confidence with competence. This is called the bus to Abilene phenomenon. A group can collectively decide to do something that nobody actually wants to do, just because one person suggested it confidently and everyone else went along to get along. We follow the loudest voice. But here's the kicker, Alex. Research shows there is zero correlation between being the best talker and having the best ideas.
Zero? That is terrifying. So we are letting the loud people drive the bus off the cliff. But Sarah, surely there are times when you need a charismatic leader. You need someone to rally the troops. You can't have a CEO who is afraid to speak to the press.
Of course. But we overestimate how much of that is needed. Cain points to the research of Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great. He found that the best performing companies were often led by level 5 leaders, people who were humble, quiet, mild-mannered, even shy. They were not charismatic stars. They were obsessed with the quality of the work, not their own ego.
And there is that fascinating study by Adam Grant about pizza chains. This was the nuance I really appreciated. He found that extroverted leaders are great when the employees are passive and need direction. But when the employees are proactive, when they have their own ideas, introverted leaders are actually better.
Yes, because the introverted leader listens. They let the employees run with their ideas. The extroverted leader tends to dominate the conversation and accidentally shuts down other people's initiative. So if you want innovation, you might need a leader who knows how to be quiet. Which brings us to the next big battleground: creativity.
This is where we talk about the Woz, Steve Wozniak, the wizard behind Apple. Now, the myth is that Apple was born out of collaboration. The Homebrew Computer Club, a bunch of guys in a garage sharing ideas.
It was. But that is only half the story. Wozniak went to the club? Yes. He got inspired there. But then, he went home, alone. He sat in his cubicle at Hewlett-Packard at 6:30 inches the morning, before anyone else arrived. He worked late at night. He built the Apple I entirely by himself. He says explicitly in his memoir, Work Alone. You're going to be best able to design revolutionary products and features if you're working on your own, not on a committee.
Work alone. That goes against everything modern corporate culture tells us. We are obsessed with the new groupthink, open office plans, brainstorming sessions, team building, I mean, my office took down all the cubicle walls 5 years ago. They said it would increase collision and collaboration.
And did it?
Honestly, I wear noise-canceling headphones 8 hours a day just to get an email written. It is exhausting.
The data backs you up. Open offices are a disaster for attention. They reduce productivity, impair memory, and increase stress. But we keep doing it because we worship this idea of the hive mind. We think the group is smarter than the individual, but Cain talks about the concept of deliberate practice. To get truly good at something violin, coding, writing, you need intense, solitary focus. You can't practice the violin in a brainstorming session.
Speaking of brainstorming, the book totally destroys that concept too. Alex Osborne invented brainstorming in the 40s, claiming groups produce more ideas, but studies show that individuals working separately produce more and better ideas than groups. The group gets stuck on the first idea, or people are afraid to look stupid. It is called production blocking.
Exactly. When you are alone, you are free from the fear of judgment. You can follow a thought down a rabbit hole without having to explain it to anyone immediately. That is where innovation comes from. It comes from the deep dive.
So, are we saying we should all become hermits? Just lock ourselves in caves and never talk to anyone?
No, and neither is Susan Cain. She acknowledges that collaboration is vital, but it needs to be the right times, kind times of collaboration. Maybe it is the hub and spoke model, where people work alone and then come together to share. Or maybe it is online collaboration, like the early internet or open source coding, where introverts can contribute without the social pressure of a face-to-face meeting.
It is funny, the internet is often blamed for making us antisocial, but for introverts, it was a lifeline. It allowed them to communicate on their own terms. I loved the mention of Craig Newmark, the founder of Craigslist, a quiet guy who built a massive community platform.
Right. We need to stop seeing introversion as a defect that needs to be fixed. We need to stop medicating anxiety that comes simply from being overstimulated. We need to stop forcing quiet kids to be leaders on the playground when they'd rather be reading.
That part about the evangelical church really struck me too. The idea that if you aren't shouting your love for Jesus, you aren't doing it right. It is everywhere. It is in our schools, our offices, our churches. We have equated noise with value.
So, what is the takeaway here? If you are an extrovert listening to this, look around the room. The quietest person there might have the best idea. Shut up and listen to them. Create space for them. Don't force them to brainstorm. Ask them to write down their thoughts.
And if you are an introvert, stop apologizing. You don't have to be the life of the party to be a leader. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You have a superpower. The ability to focus. The ability to listen. The ability to think before you speak.
We need both. We need the Rosa Parks times and times the Martin Luther Kings. We need the Wozniaks times and times the Jobs. But for too long, we have only celebrated the Jobs and the Kings. It is time to give the quiet ones their due. Because as Gandhi said, in a gentle way, you can shake the world.
I am going to go enjoy some silence now. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.